Hello and welcome to a Team Moray Robotics event recap. I actually have a microphone now, so hopefully the audio is a lot better. On May 24th, I competed at RABID with my ant-weight combat robot, Moray. I also brought a second robot, Kickserve, but that will get its own separate video. I have some things to go over before recapping the fights, but first, this was another great event, and the RABID team did a fantastic job running it. Out of the 3 different events I've competed at, RABID easily runs the smoothest, and they do an incredible job keeping the action going throughout the entire day. This time they even provided pizza for the builders thanks to a new sponsor, Mobius Materials. If you're just getting into combat robotics, I think RABID is a perfect event to start with. Moray had its debut last summer, and including that first event, I ran it at 4 competitions. The last 3 of those competitions ended with an even record, and I even got 3rd place at the last macro event, even though I got insanely lucky with that. Moray was definitely improving, but I wasn't happy with how it performed at macro, so I completely redesigned it from the ground up. Every mechanical part on the robot was different except for the wheel guards and the wheel hubs. I made a full video going over all the changes, so you can watch that if you want more details, but the main changes were a wider chassis, a powerful hub motor supported on 2 sides, and a single-tooth disc to deliver bigger hits. I felt good about the changes, especially the weapon system, but I had some major issues getting it to work properly. The drive was malfunctioning where the robot would be driving forwards and then suddenly the left motor would start spinning backwards, causing the robot to drive in a circle. Also, the right side drive seemed to be working intermittently where sometimes the robot would crab walk even though both wheels were spinning as they should. When I went to do safety, the robot wouldn't turn on properly, and it turns out the switch was broken, which is strange because it's the same one that worked only 2 days before when I was testing the robot. Thank you to Lars Elliott for helping me figure out the issue. Fortunately, Moray passed safety with a new switch, and the drive issues seemed manageable. My first opponent was Cowpie. It's a 2-wheel drive robot with a weapon called an egg beater, which is basically a hollowed out vertically spinning drum. I didn't feel too bad about this matchup because I thought I could get around to the sides to deliver hits, and drums and egg beaters don't always seem to be the most damaging robots at the lower weight classes because they can't slice through TPU as well as a disc or bar spinner could. This is good because Moray is made out of a lot of TPU. I wanted to try going weapon on weapon because Moray's spinner is very low to the ground, so I thought I might win a weapon on weapon exchange. When the fight starts, I'm fine going straight at Cowpie's egg beater, and it turns out he would win a weapon on weapon exchange, hitting Moray into the air. He flips me in the corner, but I quickly self-right. Then I get around to the side of my opponent and deliver a solid hit to his frame rails. Cowpie proves again that it wins a head-on exchange and flips Moray. Then he hits Moray in a way where I come down on top of him, and I think Moray's disc might have made contact with his top plate. I self-right, and we have a bit of a neutral exchange. I find some nice angles to get a few glancing blows on the weapon setup of Cowpie and knock him away. I come in from the side, and there's a massive hit, but I'm not entirely sure whose weapon caused this. It might have been a result of both of our spinners hitting each other. Cowpie delivers a huge weapon-to-weapon hit that flips Moray, but I self-right by pushing on my opponent. A small hit flips Moray, and Cowpie expertly follows this up by being right on top of me when I self-right. At this point, I see that Moray's disc is not able to spin up, which would be a huge issue. I'm still not able to spin the weapon after trying for a while, and it seems clear that it's dead when Cowpie comes in for some more hits. I'm able to use the wide chassis of Moray to push Cowpie, but the faulty drive system does not allow me to maintain control very well. For a while, Moray isn't able to drive well enough to do anything, and Cowpie gets a few small hits in. Cowpie lands a nice shot that flips both robots over, and this would have been a great time for me to capitalize, but Moray's drive was pretty awful, and Cowpie eventually self-rights off of me. The fight goes to the judges and Moray loses, unsurprisingly. This was not a great first fight for the new Moray. It wasn't awful either, because the durability was pretty solid and I did get a few hits in. The biggest problem here was the drive, because it was acting up for unclear reasons and made the fight so much more difficult for me. What's really annoying is that the weapon going down was caused by one singular wire, where the solder joint connecting it to the ESC broke. This could have been avoided if I just soldered it on better. Other than that, there was basically no damage. Some parts were scratched a little bit, but it didn't affect the functionality of anything. I had more issues after the fight with the left side drive ESC, where it would do that thing where it would randomly switch directions. Nobody knew what this was caused by, but swapping the ESC out seemed to work. In the loser's bracket, my opponent was Bug Zapper, a cool angled bar spinner. Moray isn't set up well to take on horizontal or angled spinners, but Bug Zapper is very tall, and I didn't think it could self-right, so I didn't feel too bad going into this one. Moray has serious drive issues when I put it in the arena, and I have to come out of my corner backwards. Bug Zapper gets the first hit and connects with Moray's wheel guard, and then we go weapon on weapon, creating some titanium sparks. Bug Zapper barely misses a hit on the back of Moray, which could have been disastrous. Moray gets flipped by another hit. Then one of the biggest exchanges I've ever been a part of happens when our spinners hit each other and Moray gets sent up the wall while Bug Zapper goes flying across the arena. He lands upside down and I ask if my opponent wants me to hit him and continue the fight, which he does, so I hit his wheel and right him.
Count down, we can't move. Oh, he gives him a hit!
Moray's disc gets embedded in Bug Zapper's TPU chassis on the next hit, and both robots jump into the air a little bit. Another weapon-to-weapon hit flips Bug Zapper again, and I want to keep the fight going because the driver was willing to keep fighting. Moray connects with its spinner and rips the entire weapon off of Bug Zapper. I right him and then flip him again. Then Moray hits Bug Zapper into the air and hits it again in mid-air, throwing it away. Bug Zapper's weaponless motor is now enough to move the robot around upside down, meaning I had to keep hitting it, even when it was flipped. Bug Zapper is flipped back upright, and then pins Moray against the wall with its wedge. A few good hits destroy Bug Zapper's plastic wedge, which would make it hard for him to get another pin. I flip him again and then hit the robot hard enough to flip myself. This is definitely the biggest hit Moray's ever had on another robot. Another big hit sends Bug Zapper flipping through the air. The drive issues make it hard, but I get one more bit of damage in before the fight ends. Moray wins the judge's decision, and I imagine it was a pretty easy decision. Other than the bad drive problems, that fight was pretty much perfect for me. The new weapon hits much harder than before, and I was especially impressed with the durability of Moray. The weapon system held up very well, even after taking some huge impacts, and the drive system continued to work the way it did at the start of the match. The only damage I took was a tear in the right wheel guard and a slight chip in the top plate. I did some decent damage to Bug Zapper because the builders let me keep their titanium bar spinner that I ripped off. You can see that Moray's spinner actually bent it a little bit. After this fight, I took the traction tape off of the wheels, and the robot seemed to drive normally again. This is strange because the tape didn't seem to be an issue at the beginning of the fight against Cowpie. Also, my battery charger broke and I had to solder it back together. Moray would be moving on to the next round of the loser's bracket and fight Wamp, which I think is a Weta kit. Wamp is a two-wheel drive robot with a spinning drum. It's a very similar sort of opponent to Cowpie, except Wamp has bolts as weapon teeth. The driver of Wamp, Jack, had another robot at Motorama this year, and I would have fought him if I won my incredibly close fight against Raptor. Since the Weta kit's drum is more round with a few weapon teeth instead of a tooth running the whole length of the drum like Cowpie, I thought I would try to go weapon on weapon again. I avoid Wamp's box rush when the fight starts, and then have no problem going straight at him, which leads to Moray taking a solid hit. Wamp hits Moray's wheel guard and then hits me again while the robot's still in the air. Then Wamp gets a nice hit on the corner of Moray, and the armor holds up pretty well. Wamp charges in for a massive hit that sends Moray nearly to the ceiling, and Wamp gets flipped and sent to the corner. Both of our weapons must have made contact here because this hit was massive, and Wamp also seemed to get thrown pretty far. I think Wamp can spin its drum in both directions mid-fight because he delivers another great hit while upside down. I outreach Wamp with my spinner and shave some sparks off of his forks. It looks like Wamp had some drive issues here, and I capitalize, but I'm not able to get much bite on his armor, just grinding it a little bit. Just as things are looking good for me, my opponent flips Moray onto its weapon, which bounces me across the box and breaks the whole weapon setup. The spinner could still function, but some bolts came loose, and now the uprights were being held on by only one bolt each, allowing the entire weapon system to drag on the floor. Now I would purposely run into Wamp's spinner because a hit from his drum could momentarily knock my spinner back into place so I could spin up again. This is exactly what ends up happening, but it seems like my own hit flings me back upside down and also pushes the spinner back down to the floor. I can still self-right, and then I use a strategically planned aerial attack on my opponent. Jack delivers some more good hits on Moray. My wide chassis allows me to pin my opponent for the maximum of 5 seconds. I take another bunch of hits and struggle while upside down this time. I get flipped back over, but I can't really do anything with the spinner anymore. There's one more hit in the corner, and then the fight goes to the judges. Of course I lost this one because my vertical spinner ended up turning into the world's weakest hammer saw. So Moray was now out of the tournament, and due to a somewhat annoying failure. 2 of the screws on each upright are smaller so the sliders would fit, and it turns out they were too short and came loose. It shouldn't have been designed this way, where the screws had very little material to bite into, so I really should have known that this was a bad idea. Also, this flexible weapon setup made it so that Moray's spinner was hitting its own top plate on certain hits. Other than that, the drive was still weird and the front armor was ripped but served its purpose. The wheel guards also took some damage, but they were still fully functional and did exactly what they were supposed to do. One of the uprights was damaged, but it also still worked. So that's it for Moray at this event. I didn't do any grudge matches with it because I chose to do one with the other robot I was running instead, Kick Serve. Overall, this event was definitely kind of disappointing, but at least it had some great moments. Like Phantasm 2. It made it very clear what worked and what didn't work in this design. The weapon was definitely a huge improvement over the old spinner, it's just that I need to change the assembly that holds the motor on. The main problem here was the drive, and for the next version, I plan on designing the weapon assembly in a way that distributes the weight more evenly, so that all the weight isn't at the front of my 2-wheel drive robot, which probably doesn't help with the drivability. The uprights will also be attached in a way where there won't be enough flex to hit myself. Also, because I was having some issues with the FingerTech Tiny ESCs that I was using, Kevin, who runs Doomslug, was nice enough to give me 2 dual brushed ESCs that he doesn't use anymore, so I could have a more reliable and significantly cheaper way of running my robots. Big thanks to Kevin for that. I'm already switching all of my robots over to those ESCs, and it seems like they work great. This won't be the last you'll see from this RABID event, since I also brought Kick Serve, so the recap for that robot will be made eventually when I have time. Also, I'm competing at Macro again on June 28 with a robot other than Moray. I want to have time to properly redesign Moray before another event, so I plan on bringing it back to RABID at the August event. At Macro, my dad will be running a plastic ant version of Kick Serve, and I'll be debuting a new lifter robot called Outpost 31. Thank you for watching this event recap on Moray. It occurred to me after making the video that both of my losses were to pretty young children, and it's kind of surprising how well little kids can drive robots sometimes.